Hi traders, welcome to this live currency strength indicator table video with me, John, on this Wednesday, the 18th of October. Swiss still remains the top currency of interest at the moment against the New Zealand dollar. New Zealand Swiss still one to watch for opportunities to the downside. So we'll go take a look at that currency pair. Pound Swiss also remains on here as well, pound being a weak currency across both tables. And then we have now got the yen on here as a weak currency. Yen is a really interesting market because it's very difficult to trade at the moment. So we'll go take a little look at euro yen because I don't think there's too much opportunity there right now. So I want to explain that one and potentially Aussie yen. But really speaking, New Zealand Swiss, New Zealand is really looking like it could continue to the downside. There's a couple of other pairs that I want us to take a look at as well in this video. Coming up on the slate today, we've already had some data. We've had some GDP data out of China, which came in a little bit better than anticipated. So the previous was 6.3% and the actual came in at 4.9%. So that is still quite a decline there on GDP, but the forecasts were 4.4. So it did come out slightly better than forecasted, but down on the previous. We then had some CPI data out of the UK where it came in at 0.5% month on month, 6.7%. So strong CPI numbers here, which obviously is not something that the Bank of England want to see at the moment. CPI in Europe coming up in 9 minutes, so that'll probably come out while we're discussing the market. Obviously, Euro and Kiwi are on here as well, which I was going to have a little look at. So that's going to be affected, obviously, by that data. And then we've got some data out of the US this afternoon. So let's go on cable first. Obviously, I'm in at 2170. Price looks like it's coming to return back to 122.15 highs at the moment. We were looking okay at one point yesterday, but then it just didn't seem to follow through overnight. We had some poor data, or we had some data out of the US, which was actually, I thought, fairly positive for the US dollar. That's what kind of triggered us into a move to the downside, really, and kept prices going. But we then found support at 121.50 or 121.40s, which was this low that formed here on the 16th of October, and prices since rallied, and now we're kind of getting this situation where we've closed back above the 50 MA on the hourly chart. It's not looking particularly great here. So again, I'm just kind of monitoring how price reacts to these 4-hour highs, because the way I see it is, if price is going to continue to push down, it's going to continue to push down potentially from this level. Now let's go across to some other pairs of interest then. So obviously, pound still on the downside, but potentially against the Swiss franc. This is the analysis we looked at the other day. I don't think anything's necessarily changed here. Downside on the weekly, potential for price to come back down into the lows there. Looking at the 4-hour time frame, we haven't revisited the 1-spot-1 highs yet. And that's an area where I would be looking for price to potentially come and retest, and we haven't seen that yet. I've got an alert set at 1.1. The other markets then of interest. So I'm just going to kick it off with the yen pairs, because the yen pairs, obviously yen coming on here as a weak currency. I don't particularly like this move, because if we go take a look at dollar yen first, the reason why I'm looking at dollar yen is because obviously there's fear of intervention from the BOJ, which they suspectedly did here when we tested 150, and price is relatively close to 150 once again. So, you know, do I really want to get involved here right now when we're so close to that 150 level? So if I go check out Aussie yen, for instance, we're close to 150, but we're also close to this 98.50 high. If we go to the daily chart here, you can see 195.80 high. So am I going to get long into resistance? No. If I go to euro yen, we are in a range at the moment, and price is just ranging between sort of 156 and 159.60. So although we've got an opportunity to see it break up towards 162.30, which is this kind of level just through here back in 08, it's just kind of chopped sideways. So maybe the data in a few minutes, when it's meant to come out in 5 minutes, will change that perspective. But I just don't see that happening right now. Let's go on to some other charts then. So obviously pound Aussie is something of interest. Pound Oz on the day traders table. Oz is the only one that doesn't have that sort of reflection across to the trend traders, but I do quite like a potential opportunity here. Now we've got this kind of downward trend developing, and what we've recently had was this kind of pullback. We found resistance up towards the 190.93 handle, but what we've seen is price kind of close below that daily supporting trend line. So I've got the idea that maybe price wants to trade a little bit lower. So on the hourly chart, I've actually marked out a little bit of an area of interest. So you can see that there's this move to the downside, consolidation, move to the downside. I'm wondering if we test consolidation, do we get another push lower? So I've actually set an alert here at 1.9130, and that's where the alert is, okay? And what I'm going to look for is if price hits that alert, I'm going to look to potentially put a sell, and that's going to be at 1.9120, and then I'm going to look for first targets here at 1.9058, second targets down at 1.9010. So that's what I'm kind of looking for here at the moment on pound Oz. I'm going to see if we get a rejection in there, get the continuation to the downside. So that is one to watch. Another one to watch is, like I said, pound Swiss. We've already kind of covered that. Pound CAD was also something on our radar. We just haven't had any kind of opportunity there. In the end, that's just negated everything there. Kiwi Swiss. So Kiwi Swiss, obviously the one that tops our day traders table at the moment. And I was watching this 4-hour time frame. This was the area we were really interested in, which was around about that 0.5340. What I was looking for was price to potentially come back into that area, find resistance, and then we'd look to get short. Price is struggling though at this little level in here, which is like an hourly high. So if we go down into the hourly time frame, you can see this high that formed on the 17th of October at 0.5315 is getting rejected at the moment, and we're starting to see that little bit of downside pressure. So two options I think here for Kiwi Swiss. Either continue to wait for the 53.40, or if this is really going to get going, then we should be looking to get short below the daily candle low, stop loss above the highs, and then look to see if the daily chart pushes price down to the 0.52 handle level, which is obviously this zone down through here. So that's something that I would probably look into a little bit. We've got the weekly downward trend. We're in the weekly primary phase again. Can we see price come back down and retest those swing lows? So that's also something you can take into consideration. And plus, because we've entered here, there's no sort of rush to get into that either. We want to see momentum take price to the downside. If you want to get a little bit more aggressive, you could go below this sort of bullish candle low, and stop loss can come right into like 30-40 pips, because essentially what you're looking for is if price does take that momentum with it, then you've increased your risk to reward ratio. So Kiwi Swiss obviously the one to watch at the moment. I prefer to wait for price to come up into this level here. I think it's safer in terms of stop losses and whatnot. So the sort of move up to the highs, and then look for an entry about 10 pips below that level. That makes a lot more sense to me, just from a risk reward point of view, as well as safety of a trade. So I want to see something more like that happen, rather than trying to get short there, it finding support and coming back to the high. So yeah, quite like that one as well. There was one more that I really wanted to take a look at. So Euro Kiwi, obviously expected to go long here. We've breached some trend line supports. If I look at the daily chart, we are approaching a level of resistance, which is this 1.8 area. But overall, if I look at it from sort of a weekly perspective, price pretty bullish. I didn't actually mind pound Kiwi long this week, but obviously pound being a weaker currency, that's not really come to fruition. So yeah, I kind of prefer looking at the other markets, to be honest. Kiwi Swiss obviously is something that we should definitely be aware of. I definitely like this 4-hour area of resistance, looking to see if we can get that pullback. Alternatively, I'll look to see what happens if price does break through that low. Pound obviously we're still in at the moment. This one is a little bit offside, or about 50% of the trade offside at the moment, so we need to see how price continues to react as well. So yeah, that pound Oz, I think pound Oz, Kiwi Swiss, pound US dollar, something that ought to be watched today. So hopefully that all made sense, and I'll catch you in the next video.